I think that the most important thing for the Attorney General is to recognize that you are the lawyer for Virginia. And that sounds very mundane, but it's pretty clear our current Attorney General doesn't have that vision. He tends to think that the law is what he wants it to be, and if he doesn't support part of our Constitution, he can just take the other side. So, I mean, the first thing, the simplest thing would be you have to represent the Commonwealth and push back when there's a constitutional overreach by the federal government. And people say, I don't have a lawyer that can do that. I could never afford to do that. They're wrong. That is, in fact, one of the roles of the Attorney General is, you have a Constitution, your job is to defend it, and you should stand up for it when it's in trouble. I mean, it's just such a simple thing. The second thing is, even if you don't like a law, you need to be the lawyer. And so our current Attorney General has on occasion said, I just don't support that. So there was a photo ID law that I was a big part of getting passed, and it was Mark Obenshain's bill, and it passes into law, somebody challenges it, and he just takes a walk. Our current Attorney General says, I'm just not going to fight for that. We need a lawyer. We need somebody who says, look, I don't even necessarily agree with what my client did, but my job is to do the best I can for them. That's sort of thing number two. And then thing number three, the Attorney General is the top law enforcement officer for the whole state. They sometimes say he's the top cop. We have important issues in Virginia, and we'll talk in a second about the refugee issue, but heroin has killed more people recently, heroin and opioid addiction, than car crashes. That is an enormous problem. We need to work on that. Human trafficking, despite the changes in the laws that we've worked on over the last 2 years, is something. So those are two criminal law issues I think we should really focus on. I have Thomas Jefferson's seat. So when he was a young man, when he was 25 years old, Mr. Jefferson was elected from Albemarle County to the House of Burgesses. And I've always visualized him riding in his carriage or getting on his horse and riding down and voting. And of course, now I'm 49, he has long since passed me in all of the other measurements. I mean, President and Declaration of Independence, but to stand on the shoulders, not just of giants, but the giant of all giants.
Absolutely.
And if you work in the General Assembly, you have it's not just the Jefferson seat, there's a James Madison seat, a George Washington seat, Patrick Henry had a seat, George Mason had a seat. Many of the founders of our entire sort of republic got their start in that body. The building itself, the Capitol itself, was designed by Jefferson. So I know that my time in the Assembly will at some point end, and people will follow me, but you go back to the early years, you had some amazing people serve. And we have some things that we do like they did. We are still a part-time legislature. So instead of being full-time like in Washington, after a couple of months, we go home and we are living with our families and under the laws we pass and have to have real jobs. I think there's benefits. We have a balanced budget requirement. That means we can't run up the big deficits like they do in Washington. Those are things that work better in Richmond than in D.C. It is impossible to properly vet. In other words, the country from which the Syrians are coming has, the nation state has been destroyed, and so when someone says something, I'm a baker, I'm from the city, what you need to do, of course, is double check. There's no way to do that. There's no way, and the FBI head said that. He said, even if we could assign every officer in my department to the place, it wouldn't matter. There's no way to double check. The city's been destroyed. We don't know if the person's telling the truth. What we can do in Virginia, of course, is we can say we refuse to cooperate. Now, many of the issues in terms of immigration law are set in Washington, but we can say you're not going to use Virginia people. It's called commandeering. If you want to settle them in a certain place, we don't have to help you. We can. Our people are not required to do that. And that is something that I think we ought to do. In other words, we are not required to help make this easier if we don't think that it's something that's going to be done safely. You see all sorts of neat places and people, and the passion people bring to fixing our country is always edifying. And even when they don't agree with you, they say, I appreciate you making the 3-hour trip to visit with us, and I hope you'll consider what I've told you today. I've done this, I did this once before, and I had the same reaction, which would be, it is humbling how much faith they have that we can elect people and that they can fix it. And I always say, it's a we. We can represent you, but we need your help going forward. It doesn't do you any good to elect someone. You need everybody in this together. We're facing some enormous existential problems in this country, everything from the debt to foreign policy. To fix them, we'll need everybody pulling in the same direction.